Hello, everyone. I'm your narrator from Grave Hush, and I'm here to help you unwind tonight. I know many of you use these stories to fall asleep. So before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where in the world are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Now get cozy, take a deep breath, let your body sink into the stillness. It's time to relax and let the story carry you into sleep. Our first story tonight. Let's begin. The doors in the house don't lead where they used to. My brother Michael is dead. I should probably lead with that. They found him 10 days ago, but from what the coroner said, he passed a long time before that, at least a month or two. I'll spare you most of the grisly details that I wish the cops had spared me. He was severely malnourished, dehydrated, and everything else that comes along with that. There was plenty of food and water in the house, and he didn't have any other injuries aside from some shallow cuts on his arms and hands. Doesn't make sense, but it seems like he just decided to stop eating and drinking. Obviously not a decision made in any proper state of mind, but that's unfortunately not too surprising. I haven't seen Michael in person for almost a decade. Around the time I went off to college, he was still living at home while he finished up at a local trade school. He wanted to be an electrician, I think. A couple months after I left, out of nowhere, my parents started calling me all upset and worried at least once a week. Michael keeps disappearing for days at a time. Michael keeps yelling nonsense at your father. Michael showed up last night all confused. It was always something new, and it was always about Michael. I wish I could say I was a good brother and came home to help figure things out, but I didn't. We were never that close growing up. I was a straight-A student that played clarinet in the wind ensemble. He was always in jeopardy of failing at least 2 classes, and his only extracurricular was getting high with his friends. There was never any animosity between us, but there wasn't any real sibling bond either. It sucked to hear what was happening, mainly how it affected my mom and dad. But I didn't think I could really help any, and to be honest, I was more focused on school than anything else. My parents tried to get Michael in to see professional help, but he refused. In fact, when they tried to push the issue, he left home for good. They had no idea where he went. They even filed a missing person report. 2 months later, they found him. He was living in some run-down old house out in the country, half an hour from the nearest paved road. No running water, no internet. The only power was from a pair of repurposed solar panels haphazardly mounted to the roof. Apparently, he bought the place and a small piece of land from some farmer nearby. Guess he still had a good chunk of his inheritance from our grandpa. Of course, my parents tried to get him to come home. But again, he refused. He said there were people watching him, following him. He didn't even want people coming out to visit since he was worried that they would lead whoever was trying to get him right to his doorstep. Even still, my dad went out to check on him every few days for a while. Then he went every week, then every couple weeks. Michael talked to him less and less every time he went out there. In the end, Dad said he only went out twice last year to check on him. Last time was almost a year ago. I think that part is really eating him up now. So that's the background. On to the present. I'm in town for a week or so to help my parents sort things out. It's the first time I've been back since high school. Once I finished college, I ended up getting married, then had a kid a year after that. Never was much time or reason to come back since my parents were more than happy to travel to us for visits. But with this all happening the way it did, I figured the least I could do was come help my mom and dad with the funeral arrangements and all of that. Funeral is set for next weekend, so that's squared away. Michael didn't have a will or anything, and as far as we can tell, the house, the land, and his truck are the only things he had left to his name. The police just finished up with the place a couple days ago, so I went out to take a look around. When I say the place is remote, I'm really underselling it. There's nothing to see for miles around aside from tall grass, low hills, and a single winding dirt road that runs roughly north to south. A barely defined driveway leads from that road another quarter-mile east before it ends unceremoniously at a two-bedroom hovel with cracked plastic siding and a roof with maybe half the shingles still intact. By the time I pulled up, I could barely see the chipped blue paint of my sedan underneath a thick layer of dirt. There's a hand pump well out front and a leaning carport with a dusty red pickup truck wedged inside. And that's it. The whole place gives me Deliverance vibes. It's just missing the inbred kid with the banjo. The place is even more depressing on the inside, though. It barely feels lived in. Peeling wallpaper, cracked windows. The living room has a two-seater sofa, a broken lawn chair, and a coffee table. And that's the most furnished room in the whole place. The first bedroom has a mattress on the floor with a nasty-looking blanket balled up on top. The second bedroom has a couple boxes of Michael's things that he apparently never even unpacked. The bathroom has the usual equipment, toilet, sink, shower, etc. But nothing in any of the cabinets or drawers. And lastly, the kitchen is barren too, aside from the standard appliances. No utensils or pans. Some beer, a couple canned vegetables, and 2 frozen dinners in the fridge are the only real signs anyone's been here in the last year. As I was walking through the first time, I kept spooking myself. Thought I heard someone knocking on the door or opening the fridge. They said they found him in the bedroom, leaned against the wall. Thankfully, the cleanup crew did a decent enough job that you can't really tell. If anything, that corner is far cleaner than the whole rest of the house now. Kinda morbid to think about. The whole place feels eerie. I've never been here before, and there's barely any sign of Michael at all. And yet I still feel something when I'm standing inside. Like I can feel some sort of connection being in the same place he did for the last part of his life. Something I never felt when we were growing up together. When he was still alive. Sounds stupid. Probably is stupid. Even so, it was enough for me to sit on the filthy couch for a bit and wait for the odd feeling to pass. Mom asked me to bring all of Michael's stuff back to their place so they can sort through it. I was worried I'd have to make multiple trips, but after seeing it all, I figured I probably wouldn't even have to open my trunk. Unless she really wanted a ratty mattress or a lawn chair in 2 pieces. I brought the boxes from the spare bedroom out first, followed by the food from the fridge. Honestly, should have just tossed that stuff in the trash, but whatever. As I was doing one last walkthrough of the place, I noticed something in the bedroom. Sticking out from under the mattress, I spied something bright red. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was a spiral-bound notebook like the kind you have to bring for middle school. Pushing back the grungy old mattress, I find more of them, all different colors, some clearly more used, others still sealed in plastic, at least a dozen in total. I started piling them up and flipping through the ones that weren't sealed. They were diaries. The dates go back to when I was still in college. It's definitely Michael's handwriting. He always had surprisingly good penmanship. I flip through a couple of the older-looking ones, but nothing immediately jumps out at me. Some strange passages that gave me déjà vu of the things Mom and Dad would describe on the phone. Paranoid-type stuff. Random diagrams that didn't make any sense. A couple creepily detailed drawings of people and figures I didn't recognize. I wondered why the police hadn't taken them, but I don't know how that whole process works. I guess if it was clear there wasn't any foul play, they wouldn't really need to take evidence. Intrigued but not wanting to spend any more time in the house than I already had, I stacked all the journals up and brought them out to the car as well. After almost 45 minutes, I was finally back on the highway heading towards town. I had initially planned on bringing the stuff straight to my parents' house, but as I was driving, I started to have second thoughts. The most recent diary's first entry was dated only about a year ago. I didn't see how it ended. I was worried it might be graphic, or it might have some sort of goodbye message. My mom's been a mess since one of the neighboring farmers found Michael, since she first got the call from the police. If these diaries contained something particularly heavy, I didn't want to just toss them in my mom's lap and let her have at it. At the very least, I felt like I should have an idea of what to expect. So, instead of driving to their place, I headed back to my hotel. I called them and told them I had the stuff and would be by in the morning. I left out the notebooks for the time being, which brings us to now. It's almost 3 in the morning here. I just finished reading through Michael's last diary, and now I'm typing it up. There's a knot in my stomach. I should just go to sleep, but I can't. I think I'm just trying to make sense of it still. Reading it through once left me with a funny feeling I can't shake. Maybe someone on here will have more luck wrapping their head around it. Sorry, I know this kind of thing isn't normally allowed, but maybe just going through it one more time myself will offer some clarity. I don't know. Just read it for yourself. Below is Michael's last journal. I will note any of my own thoughts in brackets if I think they're necessary. July 11th, 2024. Dad just left. Wish he would stay away. It's not safe. They always show up when people come by. Car didn't look like Dad's when it pulled up. Checked when he left and it was his again. July 12th, 2024. Haven't seen any outside for a few days now. I think I finally scared them off. Hopefully can make it to the store soon, running low on food. July 13th, 2024. Need to ask Paul if he needs any more work done on his combine. Paid enough last time for 2 months of food. We'll get more rice, less meat. Rice goes farther. July 15th, 2024. Spoke too soon. Saw one of them again when I got back from the store. Ran off into the grass before I could get close. Wish I still had my gun. At least I got enough food to stay inside for a while. July 16th, 2024. Getting bolder. One was banging on the wall last night. 3 knocks, 4 times, 12 knocks. July 17th, 2024. Quiet again. I made some food and turned the lights on. I don't want to let them dictate how I live my life. I'm not afraid of them. They know more than I do, but I know something they never will. July 20th, 2024. I'm pretty good at cooking rice. July 25th, 2024. Over a week with no sign. New record. July 26th, 2024. Sometimes I still miss having a TV. I used to watch the late night shows I wasn't supposed to. Grayson would always tell on me, but TVs are too dangerous. You watch them while they watch you. July 27th, 2024. They were inside the house last night. All the beer is gone, empty can of corn on the ground. Maybe they've been inside for a while. July 28th, 2024. Toilet flushed while I was sleeping. Gone by the time I got to the bathroom. I'm not safe here anymore. I never was. July 31st, 2024. Every night more sounds. Heard a shattering sound a bit ago, but can't find anything broken. I got lost on the way to the kitchen. August 1st, 2024. Saw a cat in a dream. Reminded me of Ringo, but he was only ever a kitten. Ran away. Mom said he found a new family. August 3rd, 2024. Got lost again. Opened the door to the bathroom but ended up back at my bed. Tried again and it worked right. Heard voices. Slept in the tub. 8/4/2024 பல குரல்கள் என் அறையில். Camera shutters. A terrible smell. Not leaving the bathroom but getting hungry. August 7th, 2024. Took 2 days to find the kitchen. Had to go through the closet door in the spare room. The doorknob felt loose. August 28th, 2024. Haven't left the kitchen for the last couple weeks. I've tried. At least there's food. Hearing the knocking again. 3 knocks, 4 times, 12 knocks. September 7th, 2024. The front door doesn't work anymore. It won't open. Paul was outside, but he couldn't hear me. September 21st, 2024. I tried to break one of the windows. It shattered, but when I looked away, it was fixed again. Cut my arms up pretty good. September 22nd, 2024. I keep hearing the people in my room, the ones with the terrible smell. I took my notebooks with me so they can't read them. My hands aren't cut anymore. October 1st, 2024, I got outside, through the cabinet under the sink, but one of them drove up in my truck. I had to run into the field, ended up in my closet, tried the sink cabinet again, but it only led back to itself. October 31st, 2024, Happy Halloween, November 8th, 2024. Food should be gone by now. Some days it is. Some days there's food I never bought. When I find the kitchen, I stay for a few days. Ate some corn and drank 3 beers. All that was left. There will be more next time. Maybe. November 9th, 2024. The knocking lasts for days. 3 knocks, 4 times, 12 knocks. 11/20/24. Watch died. Not enough sun through windows, can't tell days anymore. My arms are cut and bleeding again. November 2024, been in the living room. All the doors lead back here. Someone sat next to me. I saw the cushion move. 12/20/24, I think it's December. 12/20/24. 3 knocks, 4 times, 12 knocks, 12/20/24. Merry Christmas, January 2025, Happy New Year. Not worth keeping track anymore. Saw a cat outside, looked like Ringo. I'm never getting out of here. Brushed my teeth. They're falling out. Back in the kitchen. There's food, but I don't want it. It makes my stomach hurt. I already ate this food. Think I almost got out, but I think it was a dream. I can't tell when I'm sleeping. tried to break through the walls. Now I'm stuck, can barely see. I hear someone outside in the rooms, all of them, all at once. I bang on the walls. 3 knocks, 4 times, 12 knocks, 3 knocks, 4 times, 12 knocks. Lots of unintelligible scribbling and tally marks on this page. I made it back to my bedroom. I don't want to leave again. Could get stuck, could get lost. Smells bad, stains. Flashes when I close my eyes. Kitchen could be miles away, don't want that food anyways. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's a crude drawing of a black and white cat. That was the last entry. Nothing but blank, pages after. I never knew Michael had gotten this bad. I should have known, I should have listened. But it's all too late now. I've considered reading more of the diaries, but I don't think it will help. If they're all like this, I don't know if I can make it through them. Reading this through a second time and typing it down, it only made that funny feeling I felt in his house even stronger. Like a nauseating nostalgia for something I don't even remember. Story 1 ends here. Now, let's begin story 2. They call it the White Giant. I call it my curse. I never really knew where I came from. My parents, the ones who raised me, told me I was adopted when I was 6. They said my real family lived far away in a tiny fishing village in Argentina, Patagonia. I didn't think much of it back then, but over the years the thought stuck with me, and around 2 weeks ago I decided to go visit. Luckily, my adoptive parents supported the idea. My dad even dug up an old letter he'd kept in the attic. According to him, it arrived a few days after my official adoption and insisted on it being a sign of me growing up to be curious. They are superstitious people. There was a single map on the letter showing a satellite image of a town. My town, I assumed. Under it, a sentence which read, "Ask for the ferryman in Comodoro Rivadavia." The ocean was clean and serene when I arrived in the city. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I assumed the ferryman would be near the docks. At the end of the pier, I saw him. A man sat alone on a bench wearing a black coat and a fisherman's cap pulled low. His boat, docked just behind him, looked like it hadn't moved in years. "You're late," he said as I approached. I stopped. "Are you the one supposed to take you to the town?" he interrupted before reaching into his coat and pulling out a folded note. My name was written on the front. "Marcos. I was told to expect you," he added, handing it over. "Didn't think you'd actually come." I stared at the piece of paper, then back at him. "Who told you?" He smiled faintly. "Someone who knew you'd start asking questions when you got older. If they could have stopped you, they would have," he added. "But she didn't dare risk the village knowing she'd sent word." Then he motioned to the boat. "Get in." The trip was silent except for the hum of the motor. After an hour, the cliffs closed in around us. "You were never supposed to return," the ferryman said finally. "Why not?" "Because the village gave you up. That's not something easily undone, but..." He hesitated, taking a deep breath before continuing. "Some of us don't agree with what they did, what they sacrificed." I didn't respond, but he kept going. "They'll remember you, even if they don't admit it. I know because I remember." He didn't speak again for the rest of the journey. After hours at sea, my legs were sore from sitting. The village slowly revealed itself, a cluster of rooftops and boats tucked between the cliffs like it was made to hide itself from others. The ferryman docked next to older vessels and threw a rope on the dock. "You walk from here," he muttered in a different tone than before. "But don't expect welcome arms." I followed a narrow dirt path which led to the village. The buildings came into view gradually, houses built from wood and rusted metal, weather-beaten to the point they were hardly recognizable. I saw no one at first. The village seemed dead. Only the wind moved between the houses, but there were no people outside. I stopped at a crossroads. Before I could choose a direction to follow, someone called my name from behind me. "Marcos?" I turned. An older woman stood behind her house's door, anticipating my answer. Her hair was tied back and it was gray with age. Behind her, I saw a man step into view, shorter than her, with a limp. "We weren't sure it was you," she said, stepping forward slowly. I hesitated. "Are you?" She nodded, a tear rolling down her face. "Your mother. My name is Clara. This is Mateo, your father." My throat went dry. I expected this moment to feel big, a celebration, a reunion. But instead I just felt small. The village had swallowed the energy out of it. They looked ashamed. Instead of happiness, there was something else they were feeling. Mateo didn't say anything. He just nodded and refused to make eye contact. "Come inside," Clara said gently. "You must be cold." Their house was one of the larger ones in the village, but inside it felt claustrophobic. The walls were thin and a small fire burned in the corner stove. I sat down at a handmade wooden table as Clara poured tea. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again," she said quietly. "I hoped, but—" "You shouldn't have come," Mateo muttered. "You shouldn't have. Because of the right." Clara looked shocked, but didn't scold Mateo for saying it. "The right?" Clara looked at Mateo first, like she was asking for permission to tell me. "Every year the village, offers one of our own. A child." My chest tightened. "Offers them?" She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "To the sea." Mateo's voice came harder, like he was done pretending and playing gentle. "More specifically to it, whatever it is that lives out there. Whatever keeps destroying our lives." He finally looked in my eyes for the first time since I entered the house. "You were chosen that year. You were supposed to be taken, one child once a year. That's the bargain. If we don't fulfill it," Clara interrupted gently, "it punishes us. Boats capsize, nets come up empty, people disappear." Mateo held Clara's hand. "But that year, something went wrong. You disappeared before the offering. Some of us prayed you drowned. Others said it was fate." Mateo continued, "But it wasn't. You were saved by someone. That's when it stopped being compliant." He looked like he'd been waiting to say it for years. "It's not been satisfied since." I felt myself tearing up. Was it my fault? These people were suffering because of me? Does it even exist? "We didn't want to let you go," Clara cried out. "But it wasn't our choice." Mateo pulled his hand away and stood up. "I told them it was foolish, that we should look for you or offer someone else instead." His voice cracked with bitterness. "But they didn't want to, and it attacked, the first night after you disappeared." I felt a cold breeze make its way up my back. I couldn't decide if I was listening to superstition or a confession. "It knows we tried to cheat it. The others think you cursed this village by surviving." My skin crawled, either from the breeze or the words that were being tossed around. "So why am I here? Why didn't you tell me not to come? I don't want to get you into trouble." "We didn't know you were alive. Clara whispered. Not for sure. Then the ferryman sent word, and by then it was too late. I stood up, agitated. Too late for what? You aren't making sense. Mateo looked me dead in the eyes. Too late to stop what's coming. A knock rattled the door. Mateo moved toward it, swinging it open. A man stood in the cold, his breath visible in the air. They saw it, he panted, up past the cliffs. Mateo's face went pale. How close? The man didn't say anything else. He didn't need to, as we heard a scream from far away. Then it abruptly ended. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mateo looked at me. Get inside the back room. Now! I listened, but before standing up, I saw something outside the window. I couldn't make out what it was, but I saw long limbs, a huge figure in white fur. Clara grabbed my wrist and yanked me into the back room. She slammed the door shut and shoved a dresser in front of it. She turned to me, her eyes wide with fear. It knows you came back. That's why it's here. A sound came from outside, something heavy being dragged across the street. I could hear distant shouts and gunshots, but they slowly faded. Clara crouched beside me. There's someone you need to find. The woman who saved you, Sarah, the one who took you away from this place. I blinked, speechless and silent. She came once, years ago, when Mateo wasn't here. Told me all about you, how you survived and are now with another family. Then told me to never speak of it to the others. They tried to bring you back, finish what they started. She blinked, her eyes turning serious for a moment. It's what Mateo plans to do now. They've talked it over with the village. My chest tightened. I could barely hear her over my own heartbeat. She reached out and gently cupped the side of my face. And although her hands were cold, they were steady. The only steady thing left in the house. Don't worry, my dear, I'm not losing you again, not to anyone. She shoved me toward the back door with a deep sadness yet fulfillment in her eyes. Run, Marcos. Up the hill, far away. I've sent word to her. And I didn't argue. I listened to her and bolted for it. I reached the top of the hill, my limbs burning by the end of it. At first, I thought the tower I saw there was abandoned. Its stone walls were cracked and the door frame bent inward. But a woman opened the door and looked at me with kind eyes. Marcos, she said softly. She looked younger than I had expected, around 30 with a few wrinkles running across her forehead. Her eyes were tired, but after seeing me, she tried to mask it. You've grown. Come in quickly. I stepped inside and she closed the door behind us. The interior was small but cozy, not as claustrophobic as the house in the village. You're Sarah, I finally managed. And you're the boy I should have left behind. Her voice didn't carry any bitterness, just a dry sense of humor and guilt. I swallowed hard. My parents say you took me. I saved you, she corrected. But saving you broke the balance and it's been angry since. I sat, too exhausted to argue. What is it? Her expression mirrored that of a young, ambitious woman. Subject, title, warden, that's what we called it. Your people just call it the White Giant. I didn't want to interrupt her with my questions, so I sat in silence. It's older than the village. Older than any of us, actually. She placed a hand on her forehead. The rite kept it calm, but the year I saved you, I didn't just save a child. I doomed this place. I stared at the floor. Then what can we do? Sarah leaned forward and looked at me. You have 3 choices, Marcos. Run and leave this place to rot, which is what your mother wants. Stay and try to trap it, which is virtually impossible, or... Her voice failed. I can give you back to it. I flinched. She must have noticed as she added, I don't want to do that. But it's the truth, and you deserve to know. I closed my eyes, trying to clear my head. I couldn't forget my mother's face, the way she shoved me toward the back door, the sadness in her eyes. You decide, Sarah said quietly, but you don't have much time. It's coming our way. She moved quickly after that. We can't kill it, she said, pulling open a wooden chest in the corner. Inside there were tools which could be used to trap it, metal hooks, thick rope, and dynamite. But we could trap it. She grabbed my shoulders. Marcos, listen to me. The village refused my help. I was exiled here from my job because of saving you. We don't have time to be afraid. Only you can help me with this. I nodded, though I wasn't confident in whatever we were about to do. We left the tower together, moving through the woods. From here I could see the village far below, and coming straight for us was the white giant. It moved with confidence. It wasn't searching for me, it knew where I was. Its white fur caught the moonlight, and its head tilted as if it were listening. Sarah shoved a bundle of hooks and rope into my arms. Help me set anchors along the ridge, she ordered. If we can get it tangled. The beast's roar cut her off. It sped up, now running towards me. This won't work, Sarah. What else? We'll make it work, Sarah snapped. Her voice carried the same kind of hope and determination my mother's did. We worked fast, hammering the hooks into the rock with speed and precision. Each roar came closer. I could hear its steps from far away. When the last hook was secured, Sarah looked at me. If this fails, you run. Do you understand? I wanted to argue, to tell her that wasn't fair to the villagers. But then I remembered my mother's words. I'm not losing you again. She wanted me to survive. She didn't want me to die here. I swallowed hard and hoped for the trap to work. The giant came into view, its limbs moving erratically beside him, its head turned toward us, and for a moment I saw the desperation in its cold, dark eyes. This could work. Now, Sarah shouted. We pulled the ropes, and for a second it seemed to work. She threw the dynamite at him. I'm not sure whether to damage it or bury it. The blast tore through the ground, echoing across the cliffs. I'm sure the entire village heard it, and for one fleeting moment I thought it had worked. The white giant stumbled, its massive form vanishing behind dust and debris. Sarah grabbed my arm. Move. Now. We started running toward the village, but I made the mistake of looking back. I just wanted to see whether it was following us, and it was. The creature clawed its way out of the rubble, its white fur stained with dust and blood. It tilted its head, and its mouth resembled a grin. No, I muttered. Sarah shoved me harder. Go! The ropes we'd laid, the hooks, none of it mattered. This beast can't be trapped. Down there, she pointed toward a narrow ravine which we could use to outmaneuver it. If we can get to the water, it might... A roar tore through the air again, cutting her off. Sarah's hand pushed me forward. Run, Marcos! And in that moment, I didn't object. Everything, the village, the people, Sarah, faded into the background. There was only my mother's voice. Behind me, I heard Sarah scream, a scream that was abruptly cut off by the sound of trees falling. By the time I reached the shore, the village lights were a faint glow in the distance, and I realized what I'd done. In that moment, I wanted to turn back, to fight and help my family survive, but I didn't. because my mother told me to run, to survive. I stared at the black horizon, and for the first time in years I prayed. I'm sorry, Mother. I hope you can forgive me. I hope you wanted me to live, even if it meant you wouldn't. The wind carried no answer. I knew I would never come back here again. But I did wonder while I was on the ferryman's boat back to Comodoro Rivadavia, after everything is finished, will the white giant stay there or come hunt after me? Story 2 ends here. Now, we drift into Story 3. The Book of Death Signs. The Book of Death Signs. I saw it once when I was in middle school. It was a thick book, like a dictionary or an encyclopedia, and all it contained were endless pages of people's faces, what they looked like before and after death. On the right page was a photo of the person's face while they were alive, and on the left, a photo of their face after death. I don't know who made such a book, for what purpose or how, but it's said to be a secret reference material among people involved in fortune-telling. And according to them, if you look through that book every day, you'll eventually become able to recognize the death signs that appear on a person's face before they die. The person who showed me that book was a teacher at the test prep course I was attending at the time. That was over 20 years ago. He was working part-time at a cram school for a few years after graduating from college. Then one day he said, "I'm going to Bali to study white magic." And after that, no one ever heard from him again. This is a story I heard from that teacher. Let's call him Brian. When Brian was a college student, he got his hands on that book of death signs and spent every day staring at it. He barely attended classes and was deeply immersed in the occult, but he liked mountain climbing and would sometimes show up to the university's hiking club. One day, he was supposed to go on a winter mountain trip and met up with the group at a small station near the Catskill Mountains. When he looked at the faces of the group members who had gathered, Brian realized for the first time that death signs really do exist. Naturally, Brian refused to climb the mountain and desperately tried to stop them, shouting, "All of your faces have death signs." But they just laughed and said, "Huh? What are you talking about? Do you think you're some kind of psychic?" They left Brian behind, and the other 4 headed off into the mountains. A few days later, while watching TV at home, Brian saw a news report that members of the university's hiking club had gone missing. To his shock, Brian's name was listed among those missing. Shocked, he immediately contacted the university and got in touch with other hiking club alumni who had gone climbing with the group. Then they rushed to Woodstock, the town they usually used as a base for mountain trips. Due to bad weather, the search had to be postponed until the next day. With nothing else to do, Brian headed to a familiar cafe they always visited after coming down from the mountains. There, he saw the supposedly missing members casually chatting at a table as if nothing had happened. Brian, surprised, ran over and sat with them, happily saying, "You guys made it out alive." Then one of them, holding a newspaper, placed it on the table and said quietly, You've got a death sign. That thing you talked about, the death signs, right?" He stared at Brian and gave him a creepy smile. Chilled to the bone, Brian ran into the restroom in the back of the cafe and looked into the mirror. But there was nothing there. Nothing that looked like a death sign. When he came out, the members who had just been there were nowhere to be seen. He asked the cafe owner, "Where did my friends go?" But the owner just tilted his head and gave a vague response. According to the owner, "You suddenly came in and sat down alone at a table talking to yourself. Then you suddenly ran into the restroom." Brian, puzzled, looked down at the table and picked up the newspaper that had been left there. There was an article about the missing hiking club with 5 photos of their faces. At the very bottom was Brian's photo. The other 4 all had clear death signs on their faces. Story 3 ends here. Now listen closely to story 4. I saw something impossible to explain, and I believe that my mother's prayer for protection brought me an angel. This story happened a few years ago, but I still remember every detail to this day. It's difficult to put into words, but what I experienced was real. I live with my mother in a house that is below my grandmother's house. That day, I was going to the mall and called an Uber. I went up the stairs and waited in the hallway that leads to the street, leaning against the wall, looking at my cell phone. My mother has always been a woman of faith. Never fanatical, but firm with God, always praying. She has the habit of praying for the house, for her children, for her grandchildren. As I waited, I heard his voice in prayer. The door was open, so I approached the stairs just to hear better. I always liked listening to her pray. At first, she asked for protection. So far, everything is normal. But he soon began to pray with authority, asking for all evil to leave our house. It was at that moment that my dog ran up the stairs and came straight to me. She started pushing me with her body, agitated as if she wanted to get me out of there. She wasn't scared. She was brave. What I saw in her was urgency, as if she were trying to protect me, to warn me about something I didn't yet understand. I turned on the flashlight on my cell phone, trying to understand what was happening. And then I saw it. When I turned off the light, something came out of my house. It was like a dark, thick shadow that wasn't smoke, but it didn't feel solid or real either. It was a dense, heavy, dark presence, as if it belonged to another plane but was crossing into ours. It grew and moved quickly, climbing the outside wall and jumping onto the wall of my grandmother's house. And there, before my eyes, it took shape. What appeared was a gigantic bestial dog. Its body was leaning over the wall, huge paws, long snout, pointy ears. The hair seemed hard, bristly, not soft, not natural. He stood there, completely still, just looking at my grandmother's house. I was frozen, leaning against the wall. I couldn't look away. It was then that a voice spoke right to my right side, clear as if someone was there with me. It wasn't thought. It was a real voice, strong, firm, intense. "Don't look at him, look at your cell phone." Still, I couldn't move. It was like my body was stuck. Until an inexplicable force took over me, as if something bigger was pushing me, and I managed to lower my head. Even with my face down, I tried to look out of the corner. And that's when I saw the creature turn its head towards me. The eyes were green, a bright, deep green that was impossible to forget. And then, he jumped into my grandmother's house. At the same time, the environment changed. The air became light. The tension disappeared. It was as if everything had returned to normal. I believe this lasted less than a minute, but to me it seemed like an eternity. A few weeks later, my grandmother started complaining that her neighbor was coming into her house in the early hours of the morning. She screamed and said she saw someone in the room. But her house is completely closed with barred windows, and her room is in the back. Nobody believed it, until one day she told me that she saw green eyes under the television watching her and my grandfather sleep. Shortly thereafter, my grandfather began to develop dementia. He ended up passing away because of it. And today, my grandmother lives with advanced stage Alzheimer's. I don't know what that was, but I know I saw it, I know I heard. And I know that someone protected me at that moment. Story 4 ends here, and now we enter the fog of Story 5. My son died during surgery. He called me from the hospital payphone 10 minutes later. I don't really remember what the last thing I said to my son was. That's the part that keeps me up the most. I replay everything I do remember, every look, every phrase, every second of that morning, trying to figure out what the last words were. Maybe it was something stupid like, "We'll be here when you wake up." Maybe it was just, "Love you, buddy," out of habit without really feeling it. Or maybe I didn't say anything at all. God, I really don't know. He was 7, appendectomy. The kind of thing that's not supposed to go wrong. We'd caught it early. The surgeon said it was routine. My wife cried all morning. I just sat there like an idiot, nodding at the nurse, shaking the surgeon's hand, acting like someone who had their shit together. I'd taken the day off work. I even brought my laptop. That's the part that haunts me the most. That I thought I might get emails done while my son was under anesthesia. It happened fast. The nurse came into the waiting room, pale and quiet. She asked if we could step into the consultation room. And suddenly the air was gone. I remember how my wife's nails dug into my hand. I didn't flinch. They said he didn't wake up. Flatline. Unexpected complication. A blood clot, they think. Time of death, 4:31 p.m. I don't remember walking back to the car. I remember seeing a vending machine and wondering if I should eat something and immediately wanting to puke. I remember my wife sobbing and saying, "It's not real, it's not real, it's not real." I remember the receptionist giving me a look that I still don't know how to describe, like she knew and couldn't say anything. And then I remember my phone ringing. It was 4:42 p.m. Unknown number, hospital area code. I answered numb, and I heard my son's voice. "Daddy?" It was quiet, frantic, like he'd been crying. "It's cold, I can't find anyone." It wasn't a recording, it wasn't some other kid, it was him. I know my son's voice, I know the little tremble he gets when he's scared. "There's no lights here, I don't know where the nurse went. They told me not to talk too long." "Who?" I asked. "The people in the walls." Click. The sound of a payphone receiver slamming down. The line went dead. That night I didn't answer the next call. I was in the laundry room folding his clothes. I'd washed them automatically, like muscle memory. His favorite Spider-Man shirt, that hoodie he wore to the hospital. The phone rang in the other room. I didn't move, just sat there holding a sock the size of my hand. Later, I found a voicemail. No number, no transcript, just one message, 1 minute long. It was him. "I think I messed up. I don't know if I'm supposed to be here." It's like a hospital, but it isn't. There's a hallway that never ends. There's a man in the mirror. He only smiles when I cry. "You're coming to get me, right?" Every day after that, 4:42 p.m., same number, same voice. And every day it got worse. Daddy, I saw me. Another me. He had my face, but he was smiling too much. He told me you're not gonna come. He says you didn't even say goodbye. The next morning I smashed the phone. Then I sat at the table listening to the silence, pretending it was over. And then the house phone rang. We haven't had a landline in years. Caller ID said, E. Marshall, 4:42 p.m. I answered. Daddy, I don't know how to get back. There's doors, but they go wrong. I saw you today, but you didn't see me. The smiling one said you weren't supposed to keep me. He said I was his. Click. That night I got a text, just a photo. Blurry, dim, hospital flooring. Cheap linoleum under bad fluorescent light. A payphone stood in the center, not mounted, just standing. The receiver was off the hook. A smiley face had been drawn in blood on the keypad. Caption, soon. Then another call came. This time, from my number. I answered. The voice was Ethan's, but wrong. I'm not myself anymore. I don't know where my hands are or my face, but I still remember what your voice feels like. It's like warm light under a door. I crawl toward it every time I hear it. And I think if I get there, I won't be alone anymore. I stayed up that night in Ethan's room. At 4:42 a.m., the baby monitor clicked on. No static, just breathing. Then, he's not cold anymore. He's just empty. Thank you for leaving him. A new voicemail came later. No number, just come say goodbye. I didn't mean to go looking for him, but after that last message, the house changed. At 4:42 a.m., I walked past the upstairs closet. The door was open. It used to be his hiding place. After he died, we never touched it. That night, the coats inside were swaying. The heater was off. The air was cold. I stepped close. The back of the closet was wrong. It had pushed open, like something had peeled the drywall into a hallway. It didn't feel like a space. It felt like a waiting room for something else. From inside, I heard his voice. Not Ethan, not exactly, just what's left. I'm not me anymore. But I remember what it felt like to be your son. I stood there a long time, then I said, I love you, Ethan, goodbye. And for the first time, I meant it. The coat stopped moving. I shut the door, gently, like tucking him in. It's been 3 days. No calls, no monitor. Just silence, but last night, when I passed Ethan's room, the door was cracked open just a few inches. I think I said goodbye, but I don't think it did. Story 5 ends here now. Settle in for story 6. My family are lying about how my cousin died. Here is how it happened. My sister Allie and I inherited a toy box from our grandmother when she passed away. One of the few things my parents considered worth salvaging from her possessions. The rest of them were sent away to Goodwill or to the junkyard or were passed around any relatives that cared to claim them. The toy box nobody had wanted, and so it ended up with us. Allie and I hated it on sight and avoided putting anything into it we valued, not least because things seemed to go missing from it on a regular basis. The chest was made of a grimy varnished wood, a grinning bear painted in a 1940s cartoon style on every side. You could tell that it was supposed to be cute, but the artist had done a bad job of it. The bear's eyes oddly humanoid and threatening, its smile full of overlarge teeth with a fat tongue protruding grossly through the middle. How that drawing had ever been deemed appropriate for children, I don't know, but then things like that passed in those days. Neither of our parents seemed to see anything wrong with it anyway. Grandma would have wanted you to have it, Mom said in stern response to our complaints. Don't you think so? Allie and I looked at each other and shrugged. We'd never seen much of our grandmother while she was alive, only during the holidays. Even then, she'd mostly sit in an armchair drinking whiskey and getting emotional about her brother, who'd allegedly run away when he was 10 or so and had never come home. We had no idea if Grandma even loved us, let alone if she'd care whether or not we hung onto an old toy box that had surely only ever brought her bad memories. But our mother, teary, adamant, insisted that we keep it even after Allie admitted that it was giving her nightmares. She wasn't the only one. I took to throwing a blanket over the box at night, convinced that I could see the bear's eyes blinking in the dark, its hairy lips moving around words I could only ever decipher in dreams. The bear trap was mostly empty by that point. We'd gotten into the habit of hiding our favorite toys at the bottom of the wardrobe after noticing the vast majority of the things we stored in the maligned box were lost soon after, or eaten, as we believed. When the time came for Allie to move into her own room, we had a heated argument about which of us had to keep the bear trap. I argued that since I got the old bedroom, it was only fair that she took it off my hands, whereas Allie insisted that it may as well stay where it was and that moving it could only be a bad idea. In the end, she got her way, triggering a feud between us that went on for a solid month. It only ended with the announcement that our cousin Harry was coming over for Christmas, forcing us to agree to a temporary truce in order to manage the crisis. Harry was just 2 years younger than us, but he still acted like a little kid, clingy and deliberately annoying in whatever way provoked the biggest reaction out of us. Whenever our aunt and uncle stayed over, we were expected to keep our cousin occupied, meaning out of the way of the adults, who were not exempt from Harry's reign of terror. "We've got to do something about him," said Allie. "If he starts repeating everything I say like the last time, I'm going to freak out, like seriously, I'll go insane." "I know," I said somberly. "Remember when he broke that chair and Dad went nuts at us like it was our fault?" Allie groaned. "Yeah, or that time he kept bouncing that tennis ball off of everything." I nodded. "He did it all night. I grabbed it and hid it somewhere and he started yelling his ass off." Allie threw herself onto my bed and screamed into the pillow. "God, I can't stand him." "So what do we do?" I asked. "If we don't come up with something before he gets here, we're screwed." The conversation was taking on the severity of a war room debate. "We still have a week before we have to see him," said Allie. "That's enough time, right?" "I don't know," I said. "I hope so." By the day Harry arrived, my sister and I had come to an agreement to keep him distracted with as many games as we could think of. Being that he had such a short attention span, nothing worked until Allie suggested hide and go seek, which brought out a rare competitive focus in him we'd never seen before and knew we likely never would again. Every time Allie or I ended up as it, we'd spend a long time pretending to look for Harry around the house, dragging out the search for as long as we could before finding him and starting another round. We made a huge show of frustration in our losses to keep Harry on the hook, concealing our laughter as he punched the air and whooped before charging off again, determined to beat us some more. It was during our 5th turn of the game that we realized we genuinely could not find him anywhere, having searched every room and every possible hiding spot there was. We'd grown up in that house, knew every part of it as well as we knew each other. We knew, too, that Harry hadn't left the property. Both the front and back doors were locked, and there were no footprints to be seen outside in the snow. Panting like runners, Allie and I sat together at the top of the stairs, amazed at having been truly defeated. Then we looked at each other, and a live-wire jolt of understanding sparked us both to our feet again. "The bear trap," I said. "It's the last place he could be." "Could he even fit in there?" Allie asked, trying to sound doubtful. Harry was slight for his age and more than a head shorter than I'd been then. With the toy box being the size of a large coffee table, he could have curled up inside pretty comfortably and could have breathed just fine if he propped the lid open a crack. I wondered with a twisting horror if he'd forgotten to do this and had suffocated to death while we'd been looking for him, but that didn't feel right somehow. I didn't know how to explain it to Allie, so I kept my mouth shut until we were both in my room, looking at the bear trap as though the animal painted on its many faces would rear up and maul us if we got too close. "You'd better open it," I said. Allie shoved her hands in her pockets and shook her head. "It's your room, so it's your box. You open it." We were both scared, talking fast, fiddling with our clothes, anything but doing what needed to be done. "What if he's dead?" I asked, and Allie flicked her eyes to me without moving her head, so I saw mostly the whites. "Don't," she muttered. "Just don't say that, okay?" I think even then we understood that neither of us would see Harry alive again. The way the jigsaw puzzles and Lego sets we'd cast to the bottom of the chest had never been recovered. We knew that the box was more than a box, knew that we'd been keeping something dangerous in the house without comprehending what exactly it was. "If he is dead," said Allie, "what are we going to do?" "Maybe he won't be," I said. "Not everything we put in there goes away, right? There's still some old junk inside." Allie chewed anxiously at the tail of her braid. "Yeah," she said, "but most of it goes away." Using the tip of one sneaker, I eased open the lid of the bear trap and kicked it until it fell open against the wall. Apart from a few sad-looking action figures and dusty boxes, there was nothing inside except for 2 dirty footprints where Harry must have been curled up at the bottom. He'd been there all right, and now he was gone from it in a way that meant the bear trap had swallowed him. Allie turned me another white-eyed sideways glance. "We can't tell anyone about this," she whispered. "They'll say we did it to him." In a kind of cold adult amazement, I stared back at her. "Allison," I said slowly, "you don't get it. Mom and Dad don't see the bear trap like we do. Even if we did tell anybody about it, they'd just think we were lying. They'll never know. We were both right in our way. When we told our family we'd lost Harry, we were immediately held responsible. Why hadn't we watched him more closely? Hadn't we heard him going outside? Why had we left it so long to tell them he'd gone when some stranger was probably driving away with Harry in the trunk that very moment? The cops asked similar questions when they inevitably came by. Allie and I stuck to the same story, which aside from the one significant omission was the truth. We were both grounded for months, which I grimly tolerated, and Allie took to like a guilty prisoner, having accepted her share of the blame. I resented that Mom had left us with the bear trap, that there was no way to make the adults understand what had really happened that day. It made me bitter and quiet, a teenager before my time. Mostly I was afraid, however. I kept imagining that one day I'd be made to climb into the box, that it would close on me, bite me in half. Whenever I sat up at night, I thought I saw the lid open and shut under the sheet I'd thrown over it, mocking me. I'd projected some kind of evil onto the bear trap for so long that it felt alive to me in some way, and I hated it so intensely that my anger was all that held me up against my fear. I never expected to learn what happened to my cousin, supposing he'd simply dropped out of existence like a word scratched off a page. Wherever things went when they were lost under beds or down cracks in the sidewalk was where he was. Or so I thought, until at the end of February, 2 men in suits and overcoats turned up at our front door. What they said to my parents to let them in and talk to them, I'll never know. As far as they're concerned, those men never came by, sticking resolutely to the story they were given to repeat until it became the only truth there was. After they'd spoken to the family, one of the strangers came upstairs to interview Allie and me, one after the other. He talked to me last, knocking on my bedroom door and letting himself in before I even had the chance to answer. "Hi, Reese," he said. "You know why I'm here, don't you?" I did, having gotten the sense of it watching his expensive car pull up in front of the house. "You want to talk about Harry," I said reluctantly. "But I know you're not a cop. They came over already." The man certainly didn't look like a police officer, and I wouldn't have believed him if he'd claimed to be. He could only have been 20 at the most, with a blonde surfer boy haircut and a piercing in his left eyebrow. I noticed that he smelled of mint gum and a popular brand of cologne, obnoxiously strong, and that there was something not right about his eyes. Maybe it's how blue they were, like contacts on a movie set, or how hard he stared when he was talking. If he blinked even once I didn't notice, I tried not to look at him. My eyes on the tips of his black shoes, which were obviously new. "You're right, Reese," the man said. "I'm not a cop, not exactly. My name is Creed Jansen, and my colleague Milo and I clear up situations like yours. Tie loose ends, things like that. Certain situations require certain people. Does that make sense to you?" "I guess so," I said. "You're government agents or something." Creed grinned. His teeth were very straight, most likely veneers. "Agents," he repeated, "something like that." Any other kid might have been scared or excited by the admission. As it was, I felt nothing but the brutal stamp of dread. "You found Harry somewhere," I said, "and you know about the bear trap." Creed nodded. "You mean the toy box. Allison filled us in." There was no disbelief or sense of humoring a child's fantasy in his tone, as I'd anticipated. I looked at him directly, then, astonished to realize that he had received the story without any surprise whatsoever. "I should tell you right now that we found your cousin's body," said Creed. "We were tipped off about a cadaver that had been discovered in a forested area just over the Canadian border. He'd been dead when he arrived there, curled up on his side in the snow. And there were no signs of any living person having been in the area to have dumped or posed the body in that position. It was like he dropped out of the sky, only we both know that's not what happened." I glanced into the corner of the room where the bear trap lay under its shroud. "The box," I whispered. "It sent him there." "I'm afraid it did," said Creed. "Wasn't the first time it did something like that either. His voice was that of a salesman, lively but professional. "There was another body within a 3-mile radius of your cousin's," he continued. "It had been there, well, a long time. As I understand it, your grandmother had a brother that ran away." Here Creed mimicked air quotes with one hand. "Yeah," I said shakily. "Roger. He was 11, nearly 12, I think. He used to run away a lot, but one time he never came back. Grandma was always talking about it. I remember she got drunk one Thanksgiving and told us she knew that he was dead." I sat down on the edge of my mattress, feeling weightless and vaguely ill. "For whatever reason, Roger must have gotten into that box," said Creed. "And when he got out, he was somewhere very far away. You see, Roger survived the journey. Shock killed Harry, or some other condition of that kind of travel we don't fully understand. Roger was a little more tough. He tried to get by out there in the forest, lived on what he could, walked some distance hoping to find his way out, but the cold got to him. Where we found the bodies, there were toys everywhere covered in snow, some of them old, some of them new, guessing they were yours." I said that they were. "Well," said Creed, "that helps us out a lot. That's confirmation both bodies arrived in the area in the same way, which we already knew. But this is what I'm paid to do, Reese. Tie up all those loose ends into a neat little bow." "What is the box?" I asked Werwood. "Why do things disappear out of it? Does it do it on purpose?" Creed smiled. "No more than a door opens or a hallway leads somewhere else. You see, the box is just a box, or it was at one time. That changed. See, from time to time openings appear in space, or even objects that are shortcuts to other places. Sometimes they just appear naturally all by themselves." "Like wormholes," I said, thinking of the sci-fi shows my dad watched endlessly in the living room on gray afternoons. "You get it," said Creed, "a lot like that. But sometimes these shortcuts aren't all that stable, which makes them dangerous, or people stumble into them without knowing what they are or where they'll end up, and they're the ones Milo and I have to investigate. That kind don't just appear on their own. There's generally a reason." Creed paused, waiting for me to ask a leading question. When I only looked dully at him, he said, "The toy box, or the bear trap, as you guys call it, used to belong to your grandmother and your great-uncle Roger. And like I said before, when it arrived at the house, it really was just a box. But after a while, it turned into something else. See, these shortcuts sometimes occur when in the presence of a young person with unused and likely undiscovered psychic abilities. Milo and I looked into your family history. Seems that Roger was having problems fitting in with his peers, fought a lot with his parents. Felt like they just didn't get him, and he wasn't wrong. There was a reason he wasn't like everybody else, but there was no way for him to understand that or get the help he needed." Taking the chewing gum from his mouth, Creed looked around hopefully for a trash can, resigning himself to putting the wad into a twist of paper in his pocket before unwrapping another. "All the ability Roger wasn't using and all that discomfort just built right up," he said. "Got stronger and stronger until it started creating a shortcut. Usually they form in places that are already doorways or openings of some sort. A lidded box is as good as any. Roger had no idea what he was making in there, not consciously anyway. But his subconscious, the part of him that was lonely and angry with everybody, that knew. I looked down at the floorboards, their little lines wiggling in my vision like drunken worms. That's why the box leads to the wilderness, I said. Because Roger wanted to run somewhere far away. Bang on the money, said Creed, extending a hand to ruffle my hair until I cringed away. Poor guy just got unlucky. One day he hid in that box, maybe after some fight with his parents or playing a game like Harry, and then he was gone. The shortcut wasn't strong enough for him to get back through, and it stayed just as unstable all these years later. I bet you noticed not everything you put in the box got lost, right? Right, I echoed. The shortcut was weak. Maybe one day it might have broken down and gone away altogether if the bear trap hadn't ended up with you and Allison. I gazed at Creed again, and as his eyes met mine, I shuddered, disturbed by the familiarity of the gesture. You knew that there was something off with that box right away, didn't you? Asked Creed gently. And you know other things that maybe don't make sense. Both you and your sister feel that same way. You're twins, aren't you? Yeah, I said. Well, there you go. It's more likely in twins inheriting abilities like the ones Roger had. And you both got the luck of the draw. As you got older and those powers got a little stronger, you stabilized the shortcut. Probably wouldn't have been able to if there weren't two of you. It's been a long time, after all. It should have broken down by now. But two kids with the same psychic focus, the same grievance. Creed trailed off, leaving me horrified by the implication of his words. We didn't want Harry to disappear, I said. Not like that. We didn't mean to kill him. Did you tell him to stay away? Asked Creed innocently. I mean, no, but we didn't know. We didn't know. I swallowed, flushed with panic. We didn't, okay? Of course not, said Creed, patting my shoulder. Milo and me, we know that. We get it. You're kids. Mistakes like this happen all the time. That's why we're here. We're going to take the box with us and put it somewhere out of the way. Milo's downstairs figuring out the legal side of things. We need to agree on a more straightforward version of events. Something the police can sign off on. I watched Creed heft the box under one arm, his slim figure unhindered by its weight. You mean we've got to lie about what happened, I said. More like approach things from a more grounded angle, but sure, let's go with that. You've been doing just fine on that front even before we got here. Yeah, I admitted. But it's wrong to lie, right? I expected Creed to correct me with a more palatable phrase. Instead, he said, it's how we keep stuff like this quiet, Reese, which is how we keep people safe. What if something else happens? I asked. You know, another accident. Now that you know about your abilities, you should be all right. Like being aware of your own strength, so keep aware. Maybe you'll see me again, maybe you won't. Let's hope you won't. Creed readjusted the box in his arms, rolling one shoulder slightly. Well, he said, I'd better get going. There's a lot more work out there needing to be done. Bye, Reese. I opened the bedroom door for him and hung back as he carried the bear trap downstairs and out of the house, the other dark-haired stranger following close behind. Allie slunk out of her own room to stand beside me at a nearby window as we watched them load the box into the car they'd arrived in. Are you okay? I asked once they were gone. Allie's eyes were red-rimmed, the result of private crying. Not really, she said. Me neither. I sat on the windowsill, surprised that the grief I wanted to feel did not come. All that was over months ago. What did the other guy do? I asked. the one who stayed downstairs with Mom and Dad. He made them sign some stuff, said Allie. I listened. They're not allowed to talk about what happened. They have to tell people some creepy man took Harry away. But there wasn't a man. It was us. Are we bad people now, Reese? Allie looked at me with huge watery eyes, and I felt sorry for her. As though of the two of us, she was the only child in the room. No, Allie, I told her, we're not bad people. But I didn't believe it, said it only to comfort her, or unsuccessfully convince myself that it was so. I couldn't tell my sister how afraid I was of the certain people coming by again, or how I wasn't sure that an awareness of what we were capable of was enough to keep us from doing something wrong again. There were so many nights after that I felt the box feeling of the uncanny and wondered if I was opening other shortcuts somewhere, or building something new and unspeakable that even together my sister and I could not control. I wished we'd never learned what had happened to Harry, that I didn't know what we could do or what we'd done. The 6th story has come to an end. Now it's time to knock on the door of the 7th. My town was built around a lake. Nobody will admit the lake exists. Never acknowledge the lake. Never look at it. Never talk about it. Never so much as think about it. None of these rules were ever actually spoken out loud during my childhood. That would be acknowledging the lake, after all. But they were as clear as look both ways before crossing, or no candy from men with beards and tattoos. The city where I grew up is built along the shoreline of this massive, crystal-clear lake nestled in the mountains. Frankly, it's a great place to grow up. There's nationally renowned elementary schools, drug-free-ish high schools, and nature trails in every direction. The population sits at around 50,000, decent-sized, which makes it all the more incomprehensible that no one, not even those who just moved here, will admit the lake exists. One of my earliest memories is walking with my mom on one of the trails near our house, one that skirted the lake itself. I had to be young, 3 or 4 at most. I was yanking on her arm in that relentless way little kids do and begging her to let me go swim in the lake. "There's nothing there," I remember her telling me over and over. Nothing. At the time, I couldn't understand her reaction. My parents never lied to me. That was always their policy. Why wouldn't she look the direction I was pointing? Now, though, looking back and filling in the blanks, I remember her jaw clenched tight, a sheen of sweat on her forehead and determined eyes staring resolutely forward, refusing to see the water just along the trail. Terrified. I realize now that's what she looked like. When I was in 2nd grade, I had a best friend, Simon. We would spend each afternoon escaping our daily chores by riding our bikes, playing catch, or other equally irresponsible forms of reckless loitering. To quote my crabby widowed neighbor, there was this one particular hill on Sickle Street we loved to take our bikes down. It really was massive. We had to make sure no adults were watching us when we committed speeding violations down it, or they would flip out and screech at us to wear helmets. Each time we made the daring ride, we would do it just a bit faster than the last. Well, one day we did our fastest yet. We flew down the hill at a speed that would have killed us if we'd fallen, then hopped off our bikes at the bottom. Simon and I collapsed in the grass to cackle at our sheer, stupid audacity. "We broke the sound barrier," I said through the laughter. "Let's do it again," he said. My wheel almost fell off. We laughed some more, then finally calmed until we were just sitting there, still giddy like we'd accomplished something monumental. It was such a good feeling of victory and unstoppability. Maybe that was why I said it. Do you think there's any fish in there? Huh? Simon asked. Sickle Street twisted to the right after the hill, but if you kept walking straight, you'd hit the lake. That was the view we had as we'd madly flown down the hill. The lake. Surely Simon had seen it. All these times he had to have noticed it. The lake, I pointed at it. Do you think there's any fish in it? He stared at me. Any hint of accomplishment was gone from his expression. I'd never brought the lake up with him before. Let's do the hill again, he said. There has to be, I continued. It's fresh water, it's huge. I've never seen anybody fishing in it, but I'm going home. There it was, the terror. The same thing I'd seen in everybody else when I dared to bring it up. Just look at it, though. You see it, don't you? I don't see anything, he said. But it's right there. It's... Simon snapped. His face morphed into a mask of hideous anger. He shoved me backwards and my elbow gashed against my handlebars when I fell. I thought that was it, that he'd released his anger and now we could ride down the hill again, but instead Simon kicked me. He rammed his foot into my side. There's nothing there! He kicked me again and again and again. I suspect a rib or two broke. Not sure, though. I never told my parents what had happened, and ribs heal on their own. The next day in class, Simon wouldn't respond to me. When I would bike to his house to hang out, he never came to the door. He never attacked me again, but he never looked at me again either. I became like the lake to him, non-existent. Years passed. I mostly stopped bringing up the lake, but it was always there. Always this dark blue smudge at the bottom of my vision when I looked at the mountains. I never did stop looking at it, but nobody else would. On walks, they would face the other way. They would comment on how pretty the mountains were, but never anything else. In school, when we learned about the water cycle, the class was dead silent with discomfort, similar to how it felt on our 4th grade sex ed day. Just talking about water made people think of it. Thinking about it made people tense. Why? I would theorize as I lay in bed at night. Why couldn't it exist? Some people even lived on it. A few of my friends had houses right on the shoreline with the water lapping at their backyards. But when we played, we would never get close. Their parents didn't build fences to block it off. To do so might admit there was something that needed blocking. We simply ignored it. They simply ignored it, I should clarify. For years I wondered if I was crazy. That would make the most sense, even if I didn't have other hallucinations. Maybe somehow for this one odd thing I unexplainably did. Except how would that explain people's constant nervousness? The catch in their throat when they turned too quickly and forgot to close their eyes. How would hallucinations explain how Simon reacted years ago? Eventually, I stopped thinking about it so much. It wasn't hard. I never stooped to ignoring the lake like everybody else, but it barely affected my life. Our city was a cozy place to grow up. It was easy to forget about this one dark ink blot, no matter how massive it might be. Every once in a while, though, my curiosity would bubble up. Once as a freshman, a new girl moved into our class halfway through the year. I cornered her after class before she could make it to the cafeteria. So have you seen it? I asked. Hey, she said. Sorry, seen what? The lake. The girl stiffened. Her eyes went wide and her hands started trembling. I don't know you, she said and scurried away. She just moved here. How could she already know to pretend it didn't exist? Another time, just after I'd gotten my license, I stopped at a gas station to buy some lottery tickets. I know. You have to be 18 to buy those, yada yada, but I was friends with the cashier, and anyways, it's not like I was doing drugs, so let's all move past this, yeah? Maybe we'll get a winner this time, the cashier Gerald said. Eh? I'm impulsive, not stupid. Nobody ever wins with these things. Somebody does. I paused. You know, I wish they did tell us who. Other states force the lotto companies to announce it, I've heard. It might make me feel better about wasting my paychecks on these. Gerald shrugged. Some things you never get to know. Some things you have to live your whole life without an answer to. Somebody should put that on a motivational poster. After that, I stopped in the bathroom. When I came out, an unfamiliar woman was talking to Gerald at the counter. Just passing through, she said. Never been here before, but the mountains are stunning. I followed her outside. Hey, I called out. The woman, holding her daughter's small hand, turned to me. You drop this. I held out the woman's lost receipt, even though nobody in the history of anywhere has ever cared about a lost receipt. Thank you, she said anyway. You're just passing through. Sorry, I have a tendency to overhear other people's conversations. No worries. I have a tendency to speak too loudly. And yes, I am. Could you do me a favor? I asked. The woman smiled amicably. Could you just tell me what that is? I pointed. Her eyes trailed towards it. The mountains? Number beneath it. Her face snapped back to me. Like Simon's had, it transformed to something twisted and furious. And she clamped her hands over her daughter's eyes. How dare you? She marched back to her car. The woman had never been here before. She'd barely even talked to anybody in our city, but she knew. Somehow she knew this grand, terrible secret that I didn't. Another year passed. It was my senior year, and my friends and I went to prom in a group of 8, me with my 6-month girlfriend. At the time, I knew it was ridiculous to think that Sherry, my girlfriend, and I would end up working out. She had college plans. I didn't. Now, though, looking back, I think we might have had a shot. I really do. The night was amazing. We danced until midnight. We snuck shots somebody had smuggled in behind the bleachers. By the time the teacher chaperones were shooing us out, we were giggly, buzzed, and not quite ready for it all to end. You'll be happy to hear we at least had the good sense not to drive in our current state. We lived close anyways, so the 8 of us walked through the darkened suburb streets. No, Sherry said when we reached her best friend's house. Don't go in. Let's do something. Like what? We were all silent. None of our parents would be especially thrilled about hosting a group of intoxicated underage teenagers. The nearest Denny's was miles away, and everywhere else was already closed. I know what we could do, I said. My words probably slurred. Something dangerous. It seemed to perk everybody up. Dangerous. In high school, that word was equivalent with fun. They followed me without questions down the street and through a grove of trees. We stood on the lake shore. Nobody spoke. Come on, I said. Why shouldn't we? Wordlessly, without deliberating, the 8 of us stripped down to our underwear and waded in. We didn't laugh. Our joking and giggling from before was over. Our senses sharpened and our brains seemed to clear. Nobody said the word lake. It was like, even in doing this, we still couldn't bring ourselves to admit it existed. We averted our gazes upwards and thought about other things. We were doing this, but we weren't. The lake existed, but it didn't. A little more? I asked Sherry. We were nearly chest deep. She nodded, and we waded further past the others until only our heads were dry. I never thought I'd be doing this. She gripped my hand. Why? You know why. But I don't. Sherry, I don't know. Everybody seems to know what's going on except me, and I don't know how to ask or make them tell me. Why? Why can't we talk about... I felt it. Sherry's gasp in front of me told me she did too. Indescribable. Out of nowhere. Incorporeal. There was an immediate sense of wrongness. Something had shifted in the universe, but I didn't know what. Only that something had, and that we weren't supposed to be here. We weren't supposed to be doing this. We had to leave now. Now. The others were already rushing back to the shore. Sherry and I followed, half swimming, half running through the dark water. I almost expected something to grab me and drag me under, but nothing did. When we sprinted from the water, we were gasping and shuddering. Half of us were sobbing. We put back on our clothes and walked back to our houses in silence. Nobody would acknowledge what just happened or the presence we'd all felt. We all waved goodbye. In the morning, my friends were gone. I didn't know it until Monday when none of them were at school. Occasionally, my teachers would glance at their empty desks, then quickly away as if they'd slipped up by looking. I tried texting each friend in turn, but each time the only message I received from any of them was invalid number. This sender does not exist. After school, I rushed to Sherry's house and pounded on the door. Her mother answered. Is Sherry here? Her mother's eyes were vacant and red. I don't know, Sherry. What are you talking about? Your daughter, my girlfriend, Sherry? Her jaw trembled as if she was on the verge of bursting into tears. I don't have a daughter. She shut the door. A decade has gone by. I never did end up leaving my hometown. That might sound crazy, but this city really is a good place to grow up. The people are nice. The mountains are beautiful and the elementary schools are safe. That's all I want for my daughter, her safety. This is the best place to raise her. I just hope she isn't like me, though some part of me already knows she will be. She will question. Be curious. Want to know why? I'll pretend the lake doesn't exist. I'll look away. Maybe if I ignore it enough, she will too, but if she doesn't, I've already resolved what to do. Once, just once, when she's old enough, I'll sit my daughter down. I will point at the lake and say, yes, it exists. No, you're not crazy. And then when she asks, why? I will tell her the horrible truth, that some things you never get to know. Some things you have to live your whole life without an answer to. The seventh story fades with the sound of rain, but something darker now begins to stir. This is the eighth story. I were hired to patrol a government building, but I was only allowed to patrol the first floor. Before I start, you need to know that this text is your death sentence. They will know you're reading this, and they'll be coming after you just like they're coming after me. Prepare yourself. They see everything. Good luck. My name is Escribar. If you're reading this message now, then they probably are too. I'm speaking from Brazil, but if this conspiracy goes as far as I think it does, the world map has probably been manipulated to keep you and me under control. And if you still don't understand what I'm talking about, then my message has reached the right person. Have you ever felt like you were excluded from social circles where everyone else fits in? I have. I've always been treated like I was different. People used to say I had mental health issues, but now I know those people were just bad actors. I was hired as the night guard of my city's government building. They told me my job was to patrol the building interior and the backyard because drug dealers and addicts were using the place to smoke and sell narcotics. Very dumb place for that, by the way, and especially because of vandals that had been causing trouble. I'm tall and relatively strong, so a few rebellious teenagers shouldn't be a big deal. After 4 months on the job, the afternoon shift guard called me to say he had forgotten the security camera key hanging on the door. We usually bring all the keys to the staff room and put them in the key drawer, so he told me to grab the camera key and drop it off there when I finished my shift. I usually didn't even remember that key existed since I never used it during my shift, only the main key and the backyard key. I had only been instructed to patrol the main rooms in the backyard, and I had access to the key drawer. The only rule I had was do not patrol the second floor. And honestly, things had gotten boring these past few weeks, just walking back and forth. So I decided to supervise the building using the cameras. That was my worst mistake. An hour had passed since I turned on the monitor. 1:23 a.m. There are 32 cameras in total, but only 14 are on the ground floor. The halls, the front of the building, the meeting rooms, the staff room, and the main office. I always found it strange that I was hired to protect the building but was only allowed to watch specific places. While sipping my sugar-free coffee, I noticed a small rope sticking out from the monitor. Thinking it was just a loose screen wire, I tried to push it back in, but it simply fell out. It was tied to a small plastic rectangle that had been covering part of the back of the screen. I checked the back to see if I had broken something. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I hadn't. All I found was a small tablet-like screen hidden behind the plastic piece. Without thinking too much, I turned it on. It didn't even have a menu. It just instantly opened 4 additional cameras, probably used by the morning shift guard. Only one of them worked, camera 3. It showed the management room on the second floor, a place I wasn't allowed to go. Before I even had time to think, wait, I wasn't supposed to be monitoring this place. The camera detected movement. It was Pietra, the popular girl I went to school with. She had always treated me badly. She was wearing an elegant, expensive all-black outfit with a skirt that reached just below her knees. I snapped back to my role as the security guard, and questions flooded my mind. How did she get in? Why is she here? What is she doing? I watched her for a while. She moved her finger carefully across the manager's desk, which caused it to move and open a hidden hole in the floor. Maybe it's a secret safe for the manager's valuables, I thought. I rushed to the key drawer, grabbed the management room keys, and ran to the second floor. Getting the keys was pointless. The door was already unlocked and opened just by pushing it. No one was there. The manager's desk was in place as always. I looked to the corner where the camera should have been, but all I saw was concrete. Am I going crazy? For the first time on this job, I felt fear. I had never dealt with the possible break-in before. Everything had always been calm. I reached for my radio to call the authorities. I don't know why I hadn't done it earlier, but with my hands shaking, I dropped the radio and it shattered on the ground. Shit! I had never said that word with so much emotion. I looked at the manager's desk again, curious. If she had gone somewhere, it had to be through that hole. Or, best case, I was hallucinating. I rubbed the desk's surface with my fingers, trying to mimic what I saw her doing. In certain spots, the surface dented slightly and made a clicking sound. After pressing 3 of them, the desk shifted and revealed an opening with a long staircase. I entered. At the bottom of the stairs was an elegant elevator-like room, empty. I saw a floor panel on the wall. At that point, I was beyond questioning anything. I just wanted to find out where she had gone, report it to the police, and get out. I touched the only button available, and the platform started to descend. The whole place had a very Baroque feel, elegant, detailed. "You've come. It was about time. I have such sights to show you," said a clear feminine voice from the walls. Was it Pietra? The floor stopped, the walls opened, a massive underground structure revealed itself, like an infinite palace beneath the earth, entirely styled like the 1600s. There were classical paintings and some I couldn't even recognize. The place had a strange but pleasant whiskey scent. Millions of people walked around dressed in smoky-colored suits and dresses, all wearing gold and blue masks. They were walking, sitting, dancing, drinking, eating. It looked like an eternal masquerade, beautiful, surreal. I stepped carefully onto a red and gold carpet. The masked people were in the other rooms, almost twice the size of the one I stood in. I was probably in the lobby, the entrance. Either way, I didn't want anyone to see me. I'm not an investigator. I'm not a police officer. Whatever this is, it's not written in my contract. I turned around, ready to run to the nearest police department, only to find that the door had closed on its own. I was at the entrance. Now I had to find an exit. I felt fear crawl over me again. I started looking around. Some of the masked people, probably the employees, amames, wore longer robes and masks, preserving their identities. I wasn't in a restaurant or a market. If there was an employees-only area, it wouldn't be labeled. I found a modest little door, unlike the huge palace-like ones that connected the lobby to the rest. Inside was a large room filled with lockers, probably where the masked ones changed. They were all locked, except one. An open locker with a long blue tunic and a golden mask, like a Catholic priest's robe. The key was missing. Its owner would probably be coming back soon. I put on the beautiful blue tunic. It smelled nice and felt good on my skin. The golden mask had a neutral face and fit me almost perfectly. After finishing my disguise, I approached the door to the lobby again, determined to find a way out. But then I heard footsteps, heavy shoes, just like the ones I was wearing now. They were coming from outside the door. Seeing no way out, I figured talking was my only option. Before the person could enter, I opened the door myself and realized I had been holding my breath only when I started choking. A familiar face. So young, so pretty. Pietra, the mayor's daughter. I apologize for my late arrival. I had some trouble upstairs. The night guard found the other cameras. We will punish the guard of the other shift for his mistake with the keys. Now identify yourself. I remembered the lockers had engraved names. Not real ones, just false labels, including the one on the open locker. Naim Doc, Locker 48. What's going to happen to the guard who saw the confidential cameras? Such a pleasure to meet you, Nimdoc. It's my first day as a servicer of the new society, and I've heard good things about your work. Now to answer your question. Neutralization. His body will be placed with the others to strengthen our blessing. The executioners are already going up. I felt my vision go dark. The tunic's pleasant scent faded, replaced by the cold metal of the mask. My breathing got louder. What the hell have I gotten myself into? I need to get out of here. Fast. Understandable. I hope you enjoy your first day of service. I must be going. Now I walked past her, not waiting for a reply. In my peripheral vision, I saw her and another man entering the room. Probably the rightful owner of the outfit I were wearing. I walked as quickly as I could, trying to mimic the same posture as everyone else. I kept close to the walls. The place was huge, bigger than the city itself. It's impossible to know how far it extended. Beneath the city, the state, the country, or the whole world. I didn't know how many entrances or exits there were. I just wandered and hoped I'd find something. And I did. But not only the exit. I had walked for about 5 minutes, probably covering 3 city blocks worth of distance. I passed by endless rooms, banquet halls, drink bars with everything from vodka to vintage wines, museums with every object imaginable, and then the strangest room yet. Massive scriptures carved into the ground and walls. In the center, a large white symbol painted on the floor, with 5 smaller ones surrounding it. And the worst of all, 4 people kneeling on top of them. And 1 empty spot. Standing there, I saw horrific visions flashing through my mind like my soul was being teared into pieces. Hearing demonic screams echoing inside my ears, I staggered and fell to my knees. This place. There was something terrible here. That's what Pietra was talking about. They have some kind of new society, one that only specific people are worthy of joining. I don't know how long it's existed or how many are involved, but they're doing something unspeakable to receive a bless. They're making sacrifices for something or someone. Something monstrous. And I'm one of the sacrificial lambs. The good news? One of the exits is in that room. I stumbled to the elevator, clutching my head, trying to silence that demonic noise in my mind. I slammed the button, and through all the chaos stabbing at my thoughts, I saw 4 tall men enter the room holding golden daggers just as the doors closed. I collapsed on the floor. The madness slowly faded, but I didn't have time to process anything. The doors opened again. It led to inside the police station, just a few blocks from the government building. But it was quiet, empty, completely empty. No officers, no civilians. The government is involved. I triggered a red alert. And to stop me from spreading what I saw, they cleared everyone out temporarily. I'm all alone in this. For now. I've been hiding here for 30 minutes. I've armed myself. But I know they have total control. They could kill me any second. A bullet could have penetrated one of the walls and through my head any time. I don't know why they haven't done it yet. Maybe they're just playing with their food. Anyway, now you know. You're involved too. Don't trust anyone. They could be part of it. The police probably don't know. If they did, they probably would not have been taken until the new society were done with me. Probably because good cops would interfere. Go to the nearest police station. They might not believe you, but if you stay around a big crowd, you'll probably be safe. At least until this text escalates globally. I wish you a good night and good luck.